For years, Jorge Messi was one of the most important people in Lionel Messi's life, but usually far away from the spotlight. Then, during the 2026 World Cup, the world got a glimpse of just how difficult things had become for the Messi family. And now, the news is official. Jorge Messi, Lionel's father and longtime agent, has died at the age of 68 in Rosario, Argentina. His death was reported after he had been receiving medical treatment for an undisclosed illness. Newell's Old Boys, the club where Jorge had played in his youth, confirmed the news, while tributes followed from across the football world. But this story actually began long before Lionel Messi became a global superstar. Jorge was not a famous football executive. He worked as a chemical technician and steelworker, and he came from Rosario, the same city where Lionel was born. When Lionel was a child, Jorge became deeply involved in his football development. And when Lionel was diagnosed with a growth-related condition, the family faced difficult decisions about his future. Then came the move that changed everything. In 2000, Jorge took his teenage son to Spain for a trial with Barcelona. Lionel was only 13. Barcelona eventually committed to developing him, and the rest became football history. Jorge stayed closely involved as Lionel developed from a promising academy player into one of the greatest players ever. He wasn't just his father. He became his representative, helping handle contracts, business matters and major career decisions throughout Lionel's journey from Barcelona to Paris Saint-Germain and eventually Inter Miami. But then, during the 2026 World Cup, something happened that made fans realize Jorge's health had become a serious concern. Lionel Messi scored 3 times against Algeria. Yet after one of his goals, he became visibly emotional. When asked about it, Messi explained that his tears had nothing to do with football and that he had been going through difficult personal days. Soon after, the Messi family confirmed that Jorge was undergoing medical treatment. The family also pushed back strongly against rumors about his condition, asking for responsibility, privacy and humanity. And this is where the story took an especially uncomfortable turn. False reports of Jorge's death had already circulated while he was still alive. There was no verified evidence behind those early death reports. In fact, the family specifically confirmed at the time that Jorge was under medical supervision and recovering within his condition. But weeks later, the tragedy became real. Jorge Messi died in Rosario at 68. The exact medical cause of death has not been publicly disclosed, so claims online about a specific disease should not be treated as confirmed. The reaction from football was immediate. Newell's Old Boys remembered Jorge's connection with the club. CONMEBOL and the Argentine football community also expressed their condolences. Barcelona paid tribute to the man who had entrusted the club with the beginnings of Lionel's extraordinary career. And fans reacted emotionally too. Across football communities, supporters shared condolences for Lionel and his family, with many focusing not on trophies or records, but on the father who had been beside Messi long before the world knew his name. There is also an important part of Jorge's legacy that should not be ignored. His relationship with Lionel was sometimes surrounded by controversy, including the tax case involving the father and son in Spain. But those legal issues are separate from the central story of Jorge's life, his long involvement in his son's football career and his role in helping Lionel reach Barcelona as a teenager. So perhaps the biggest lesson here isn't about football at all. Before Lionel Messi became a World Cup champion, Ballon d'Or winner and global icon, he was simply a kid from Rosario with an extraordinary dream. And Jorge Messi was one of the people who believed in that dream early enough to help make it possible. Now, that journey has reached a deeply personal moment for Lionel. Jorge Messi is gone, but his influence on the career of his son, and therefore on the history of football itself, is impossible to separate from the story of Lionel Messi. What do you think Jorge Messi's greatest contribution to Lionel's career was? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more football stories backed by the facts.